Salam alaikum. Thanks so much for coming to celebrate the latest issue of NANSEN Magazine with us. It's really nice to see all of you here. First, I just want to give a huge mihi to Zoe and Tess and Zainab and the whole team at Te Puna Waiora Newtown Library for having us and putting this event together. It's really nice to be working with you. And thanks also to those of you who brought some kai to share. We can all enjoy that together afterwards. My name's Vanessa and I'm the publisher of NANSEN Magazine. I was born here in Poneke. I whakapapa to Taranaki and now I live in Germany. So it's really nice to be home. If you don't know our magazine, NANSEN, we aim to connect and celebrate migrants of all kinds. And the way we do that is by zooming in on the life of one migrant per issue and learning all about them and their life and their community. We made our first issue in Germany, one in Portugal, and now we're here in Aotearoa. And the person that we've focused on for this issue is Muzhgan Samarqandi, who's sitting to the far left here. Muzhgan is a journalist, a former TV broadcaster, and mother to her two beautiful kids who are here with us today. Muzhgan has written her own story for this issue of the magazine, and we're really honoured to have it in our pages and also for her to read part of her story to us in a little bit. I also want to introduce you to Ronia Ibrahim, who's sitting just to my left. Ronia was the guest editor of this issue, and she brought on board most of our contributors from within Aotearoa's Muslim community, made sure that everything was tika, edited, saw us through the whole process, which is really cool. Ronia herself is a writer, artist, and designer, and you're going to hear a little bit more about her work too when she also reads from her contribution to the magazine. I'd also like to do a shout out to Copyright Licensing New Zealand, who supported us with a grant for this issue of the magazine specifically for Ronia's work to make sure that the stories in the magazine came from within Aotearoa's Muslim community, not just like about them. So thanks to them for that, for supporting Ronia and us. So the plan for this evening is that Muzhgan and Ronia are each going to read from the story they wrote from the magazine. We're going to have a little kōrero about life for Muslim migrants living here in Aotearoa, and then we're going to have some kai together. That's the plan. So, Muzhgan, what are you going to read for us this evening?
Kia ora and salam alaikum everyone, and thank you so much for coming. I chose a small part from the book I'm going to read. In the wake of the Civil War, the country was rife with internal conflict. Suspicions and hostilities were heightened. During this time, my mother was traveling on a public bus from Kabul to Baghlan, which was stopped at a checkpoint by local militia controlling the area. A young male university student was found to be traveling without documentation, and after he failed to answer the armed guards' questions, they threatened him to kill him on the spot. On hearing this, my mother spoke up and claimed that young man as her son. Luckily, strangers traveling on the bus supported her claim. The guards believed it without questioning, and the young man escaped dead. My mother had no way to know that this would work, and probably more reason to believe it would work. It would put her life at risk too. She also had no connection to or responsibility for this young man, having never met him before, other than that basic connection any of us have to each other. This is just another example of her muscular, world-mattering courage that has helped carry our family and others through these times, with a defined hope in humanity and in the robustness of relationship. And I choose another part also here, which is, in our very first meeting, Saratai Hakre recounted the tale of Rustam and Sohrab from the Persian epic Shahnama by Ferdowsi. In this tragic tale, Rustam and Tahmina are from neighboring kingdoms. They have a romantic encounter and have to have a child. Due to war, Rustam must return to his kingdom, but First, he gives Tahmina an armband with an amulet of the child, for the child, sorry. Tahmina gives birth to a boy and names him Sohrab, and he grows up to become a legendary warrior like his father. Years later, the two kingdoms are at war. Rostam and Sohrab encounter each other in battle, but without knowing each other's identity. When Rostam delivers a fatal blow, Sohrab says his father will avenge him, and only at this point do they learn the truth. Taihagre reflected that because of the nature of migration, politics, and intermarriage between Maori tribes, this is a story to which his people can relate and that could have occurred within a Maori context. The more I think about it, the more I am convinced that this is a cautionary tale that speaks to all of us so that we may recognize our reality of interconnectedness before we kill or continue to kill our own, destroying our future or shared heritage. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Muzhgan. I'm really glad that you chose those two passages. Firstly, your mum. When we get feedback about the magazine, people are always talking about your mum and her resilience and her incredible story. And then this legend about Rostam and Sohrab and how you use it to talk about the interconnectedness between all people, I think feels so relevant right now. Yesterday, I went on the hikoi in support of Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and one of the speakers there was from an organisation called Asians Supporting Tino Rangatiratanga, Māori Sovereignty, and she gave us a 200-year history of incidences of Māori people and Asian migrants showing solidarity towards each other and why that's so important that our struggles are all interlinked here in Aotearoa, in Afghanistan, in Palestine, in so many places that new migrants to Aotearoa call home. So yeah, this is a theme that runs through Muzhgan's story, and I think it's such an important one. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you so much. That was just a small example of my mother. She did a lot.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, what about you, Ronia? What would you like to read?
Kia ora, assalamu alaikum. So my article in this magazine is about a project that I worked on in my design degree. So I'm trained in communication design. And one of my interests is typography, which is basically like the art or designing of letters, fonts, words. And for my last project, there's a tiny picture in here. I hope you can see. This is the project that I created. So what it is, it's a piece of cloth fabric, and I used Arabic letters for this one, and it says Al-Muhaymin, which is one of the 99 names of God. So in Islam, we believe that God has so many attributes that he can't be captured in just one name. So Al-Muhaymin means the guardian, and I've painted it in black acrylic, and I've also put a henna border on around it. And for the henna border, I actually adopted like a Mughal art style because of my South Asian background and using henna, which is very popular in Muslim culture, Middle East and South Asian culture. And it was really a way for me to connect culturally with my roots, but also spiritually. I would really say it was an act of worship as it was an act of excavation on like my identity. I'll just read you a little bit about the process, which was quite emotional. My project, Treasure Map, is what I call a typographic map of my identity. It recreates the text Al-Muhaymin, the guardian, one of the 99 names of God in Islam. As Muslims, we believe that God cannot be fully captured in one title because of the many attributes he possesses. I created letter forms to spell out this name on a large square of cotton I scored from the local op shop with the acrylic paint I got for Eid when I was 15. I also had a lot of fun using henna in my work. Henna is a plant that is used to make a natural dye in many South Asian, Middle Eastern, and African cultures to decorate the hands and body. I've worked with henna before, but only to draw designs on my palms on special occasions, so drawing with the dye on a fabric canvas was a new experience. I referenced art styles of the Mughal Empire to create a floral border around the letter forms. I also use a traditional stitching technique called kata, native to Bengali people. I'm quite clumsy with needles, but kata is known for its simple line stitch technique. Learning the kata stitch was surprisingly emotional. I found myself breaking down in tears watching a simple tutorial on YouTube. I thought about how my ancestors had stitched meters and meters of patterns, their fingers working with furious learned grace. Pulling each piece of thread into the cotton, I felt like I was physically tracing and retracing an echo of a place and possibility that had always been a part of me. I've learnt that the art of beautifying and ornamentation is a humbling process. To be a beautifier is a role I take on with humility and honor. The way my fingers fiddle and pinch with each line of thread, each paint stroke dampening the fabric, a methodical stain. When I draw with henna, I feel a sense of expertise that is carried down generations, reprinting that in a new context, new country, and new body. Yeah, I think that's all I read. Thank you.
Oh, it's really beautiful to hear you read that out loud.
Thank you.
And you just told me before that your work is still on display in the mosque in Brandon Street, right?
Oh, yes. So you can actually see this work at Brandon Street Mosque. So there's a mosque in downtown CBD, and it's just hanging up there in the prayer room. So you can go in and check it out.
That's something I'll be doing on my visit home, for sure. So now we're going to have a bit of a kōrero about some of the other topics that appear in the magazine. Muzhgan, something I wanted to ask you about. I know that for you, being a Persian woman is very central to your identity. But what does that mean to you? What can you tell us about that?
Whenever people are talking about Afghanistan, it's like a war zone, and the women in Afghanistan are like victims. But actually, the women of Afghanistan are one of the most strongest women on earth, I could say. Since the Taliban took over the country, this is the women of Afghanistan that they're marching on the street, fighting for their basic rights, like the women of Iran. And it's not new. As I read that small part of the book, I chose my mother. She fought for so long. She fought for us, for the future of us, and to give us a better future. And like my mother, there are so many women that they fought for their children, for the people around them, for the people that they love. All of you know about Rumi, which we know him as Maulana Jalaluddin Balkhi. And there is a poet that her name is Rabia Balkhi, that I chose her poem in the book. She is also a very intelligent woman, and like her, there is so many intelligent women that they have given a lot for the culture and history of the world. And I am so proud to be Persian, and we have a rich culture and history and heritage that I am excited to pass on to my kids, and I want them to be proud of who they are. They belong to New Zealand and Afghanistan. And right now, for the world, we are looking like not strong enough, weak people or weak women, and just being under attack from Taliban or misogyny. But I want them to be proud, and I want them one day to know that who we are. And like all these other, like thousands of other women that they fought for their children, for the future of the children, for us that we are here today. And we don't know even their name. And I want my children to fight for the next generation and make the future better for them.
Cool. Thanks for sharing. Just let us know if you need some water. We'll pass you some. Yeah. Ronia, I have a question for you now. I know that diaspora, this migration experience, is really central to your work and your life. Do you want to tell us a bit more about what that means to you and how that works inside you?
Yeah, of course. I think a central part of being a person of diaspora, so a person of diaspora means someone who has left their country and lives in a new country, is the feeling of in-betweenness, or a feeling of not really completely feeling secure in your identity. You're always kind of figuring it out, kind of adapting to new places and with different people that you're around. And I think for a while, like as a child, I did feel like I was always the odd one out, being a brown person, but I wasn't really sure why, and that didn't become clear until maybe my later years of teenagehood and into university, whereas meeting different people and being in more diverse communities. I think for me, my creative work has always been a tool and a method for me to come to terms with who I am and also express who I am. I think it's as a child of immigrants, I am not very fluent in the languages that I was born with, so Bangla and Mandarin. So one of the languages that I do understand, I feel that I can, grasp, is through art and through words and writing. And I feel like it gives me a lot of power, not just in a sense of like self-confidence, but also feeling more secure in who I am and feeling more confident in taking, confidence in this kind of in-between identity, and really just embracing that instead of trying to fit myself or underline myself and put a label and pressure myself to be one thing, because I am a mixed person and I have so many different identities, and my identity is always evolving, as is everyone else's. And it's not just, we're not just reduced to our culture. We all have so many talents and tools that we're all uniquely gifted with. And writing and art, I've been really lucky to have that as an outlet and tool for me to navigate through life.
Yeah, lucky you and lucky us. Soon, next month, it will be 5 years since the terror attacks on the mosques in Christchurch, an horrific event that also sparked a lot of important conversations in our country and became kind of the starting point for this issue of the magazine, that for non-Muslims in Aotearoa, maybe they didn't know so much about the Aotearoa's Muslim community and suddenly wanted to know more. Something that I couldn't stop thinking about while we were making this issue is, in the week after the attacks, more people registered their interest in moving to New Zealand than in the weeks before. There was an uptick, and I guess that spoke to what people outside saw as like that New Zealand had responded in a very good way to these horrible events. But as we know from talking to Muslims here in Aotearoa, like, what are their lives like here in Aotearoa? I know that that's what I really wanted to find out more about, and that was kind of the starting point for this issue of the magazine, and something we've talked about quite a bit. So I wanted to ask both of you, like 5 years on, what, like, has your experience of being Muslim migrants in Aotearoa changed? If so, how or not? Like, yeah, how do you feel about that?
Would you like to speak?
When the attacks happened in New Zealand, I heard from the social media. I found out before my husband that he is living here. I contacted him immediately and I said, "Did you hear what happened?" And he said, "Yeah, just now I heard that." I remember first I was worried about the victims and the family of victims in this country, and also I was worried that this is not the right place for me to live. I was worried that what happened was horrible. And I told my husband that we should find some other place to go and live because New Zealand is not safe for us. But since I arrived in New Zealand, I never felt unsafe, but I often felt unwelcome. And people are telling me how lucky I am to be here and how lucky I must feel that I am not in Afghanistan. And but to be honest, I am feeling unlucky that I have been separated from my country, from my people, that I am missing my country dearly every day. Like, I can't forget that's my homeland, that's where I belong. But genuinely, it got better. The appreciation and also the awareness got better in this country, but I hope it will increase, it will get better every day. And it will get easier for the Muslims in this country.
I think with my experience before and after March 15th, I think the Muslim identity was quite unknown pre-March 15th, and I feel sad that that event happened for us to know more about the Muslim people in Aotearoa. I think, but it was also a gift that, after that happened, I felt more visible. But there were kind of two sides to that because, you're more visible because you're more vulnerable, and probably a lot of Muslims will probably agree that after March 15th we are very afraid to, even wear hijab outside after this terrible attack. And it was shocking as well that it happened in New Zealand because we often see these things happen overseas, and we're often saying New Zealand is often putting itself up as, a diverse, safe country where everyone is treated equally. And I think also when March 15th happened, I feel ashamed to say, but my first reaction when I heard the news was, oh God, is it a Muslim who committed the attack? And is it going to be unsafe for us after? And I feel ashamed for saying that because I didn't think of the victims first, and I felt more afraid for my safety. So complicated feelings around March 15th, but I do believe that New Zealand feels safer in the sense where people are more aware about, who Muslims are and that they exist, and we're just regular people all around, and that we come in diverse identities. So I have hope with that.
That's also just one part of a person's identity, right? Like, we're all multifaceted.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, I just want to add something that we are all Muslim, but we have different people around us. We are not all the same. When people are hearing that I am Muslim, they're expecting me that I should speak Arabic and I should cover my head or wear a headscarf. We are different. We are all Muslim, but we are different. And they should appreciate us and know like who we are or how we dress and how we are like, we look. It's all not all the same. When this happened in New Zealand, I was also shocked in Afghanistan. It's happening there all the time. Like you said before, we were also waiting for the news that they will say, okay, who did this? I was also worried that they will say, yeah, it was a Muslim man or a Muslim group of extremists or something, they attack in the mosque. Because that's what happens usually in the news. They're showing always the victim or the person that doing this is like definitely a Muslim man or something, Otherwise, they're not showing the reality, what was behind the scene, But yeah, it was shocking for me.
Just another thing I wanted to add is it's a bit difficult talking about March 15th because we talk a lot about the grief and unease that we Muslims feel after it, but at the end of the day, the real victims are the martyrs themselves and their families. And so I don't want to take away from that because, alhamdulillah, like I'm still living and I get to experience New Zealand after that. And yeah, I don't want to take away from the grief of the families and the lives that were lost. I don't want to center myself or my suffering because, yeah, it's not really about me at the end of the day. But yeah, I just wanted to add that. I think that's important to say.
Oh, thanks for saying that. You mentioned, Ronia, I think it was you, about these, like from the outside, New Zealand being seen as like a very good place for people to move to, this sort of outside perception that maybe doesn't always match inside. And so I wanted to ask both of you, like in the magazine we have this collaborative article about what would a migrant utopia look like, and all our contributors put in their ideas. So I wanted to hear from both of you, what would a migrant utopia here in Aotearoa look like for each of you?
To be honest, I really don't know what a migrant utopia look like. But I do know there are so many good people and there are so many good things in New Zealand that makes it easier. But also there are, on the other hand, there are things that make it difficult. Migrants are not treating well in here, and we're always treating as other. And there's a small example that me and my husband, we are living together, it's like over 5 years. And we have these 2 beautiful children. And from the New Zealand migrant, they sent me email the other day that they want more evidence of our genuine, stable relationship. And it is hard to not say that's not because of my Afghanistani passport. I don't know what else they want us to prove it. But I hope it will get easier, and I hope they will be more fair with the people. Like as I said before, like all Muslims are not the same, but like all the immigrants are not the same. They should appreciate, they should be more kind and gentle with us. But yeah, when you live in your homeland or your country, it will take a while to feel like, oh yeah, you're home or you're welcome. Most of the time, you're not feeling that you're welcome in this country. But yeah, I could say New Zealand is better than other countries that I heard from my friends that they are living. Yeah.
Yeah, I totally resonate with what Muzhgan said about, proving genuine intent with relationships. As part of the visa system, I think I experienced a little bit of trouble with the visa system because my husband's from India, and when he applied for a visitor visa here, the process was just so grueling, like 3-hour call wait times. There's actually an article in here about they use like the worst music when you're waiting at New Zealand Immigration Call Centre, and just the worst. And I think the visa system itself, just like I'm really privileged and lucky to not have experienced, having to go through that as a citizen of New Zealand. But, hearing about my husband's experience and also being a part of it, helping him, it just feels so like you're literally treated as a second-class citizen. You have to prove that, you're worth coming to the country. And even when migrants, I feel like a barrier that a lot of migrants face when they move to a country is just the feeling of exclusion or not having to prove that you belong in the country, whether that's, having to really work on your English or really, make up it's literally a point system with the visa system. Like you literally have to get a certain number of points to gain like a permanent residence in the country. And the points might come from, getting a job or passing an English test. And it just feels really, I don't know if superficial is the right word, but just like measuring how much you belong in the country through these things, whether like you can speak English or whether you have assimilated in society, whether that looks like having a job. I just feel like it's a really sad kind of grueling and condescending process to go through, and it's compulsory. And in a utopia, I wish that it was just a lot easier and there was more compassion for you to welcome migrants rather than like stopping them at the gate and interrogating them with all these questions. And I know it's hard, and that's just how the world is, but going through the system myself and seeing it from a citizen's perspective, it's just really icky.
Yeah, this idea that you can measure belonging and add up the points doesn't feel quite right, does it? No, like imagine if we flipped it around and instead we're like, as if Aotearoa as a receiving country was like, oh, how fortunate are we that this person wants to move here? Like, are we ready for that? I think, yeah.
And also, like, it's also icky that New Zealand, takes advantage of, we're a melting pot. We have so many migrants and cultures and languages, and yet you're interrogating us and not really fully accepting us into your society. Like, yeah, that's icky as well, I feel.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Well, I just have one more question for each of you, and it's about belonging. What does home, or the idea of home, mean to each of you?
Whenever we're talking about home, the first thing that comes in my mind is my homeland, Afghanistan, the country that I grew up there. I spent most of my childhood, most of my life, I could say. That comes first in my mind, that's home. But I could say here is also home. Now I have my small family here, and the people that I love, the families, the friends, you guys that you came here tonight, and it feels like home for me. And home is sometimes a feeling that when you're with your friends, that they can understand you, they can be so welcoming and loving, you feel home. Sometimes a feeling, not a physical place, but sometimes that the community that we build, the friends that we have around us, like right now we have in New Zealand, that feels like home for us, and especially for me. Also, I could say home is a place that you can also feed your soul and your body. and also that feeling of belonging, that where you belong, that's also home, I think. The food and hospitality and yeah, that's home, I think, for me.
Yeah, I think I really resonate with that idea of home as a feeling rather than a place. I think for so long I assumed home was a place, and it's difficult because growing up, like here, I wasn't considered a Kiwi, but going back home to like my parents' countries, I wasn't considered, native to that country either. And so you're kind of left thinking, okay, where do I belong? But yeah, I think over the years and the amazing people that I've met and befriended, and here in Wellington, and I now live in Melbourne actually with my husband. I know that home is a feeling, and it's about community, and it's about where you feel safe to be who you are and safe to explore who you are. It's not necessarily a location, and you can also have multiple homes. I think that's something I learned is when I moved to Melbourne a year ago, I was, I've lived in New Zealand for about 19 years, and I considered it my home, and I was afraid of moving to a new country because I was leaving my home. But what I didn't realize was I was making a new home with my husband in Melbourne. And now I have the privilege to have two homes, and it's really nice being back to visit my first home and then go back to Melbourne with my second home and hold it in my heart that I have these two places, these two homes, these two communities that I belong to, and maybe I'll have more in the future. And I think that's a really rewarding thing to think about. Not reducing home to a singular place, and allowing yourself to accept that home can be anywhere and everywhere. And yeah, it's not something you can count, it's something you feel, and it comes and goes.
I really like that idea. Yeah, thank you both for sharing. That brings us to the end of our discussion, but there's a lot more kōrero about all these topics in our magazine, and if you haven't checked it out, there's some copies up the back there. You can buy one for yourself, just have a browse, or they're also available through the library. But thank you both for everything that you've shared with us today. You've been so generous. Thank you again to the library for having us. Really appreciate that. Now it's time for us to have some kai and chai and a chat. Just one note, if you have brought some food that you think might not be halal, please come on over and make a little note so we can make sure that everyone's eating things that they're comfortable with. I'm just checking there isn't any more things that I need to tell you about. No, I think that's it. Thanks everyone for joining us. Really hope to meet some more of you soon.